We start in Myanmar, where the country's military-led government say that more than 1,000 people have died after Friday's powerful earthquake. The 7.7 magnitude quake struck around midday with its epicenter close to the city of Mandalay, followed by several aftershocks. Destructive tremors were also felt in neighbouring Thailand. International support is now starting to arrive in Myanmar after a rare appeal for outside help from the country's military rulers.
Rescuers try to reach survivors on the streets of Mandalay. Myanmar's second largest city is close to the quake's epicenter and was hit the hardest. Homes, schools and historic buildings have all been destroyed or severely damaged by the tremors. More videos have been emerging on social media showing the moments when the earthquake struck. The injured rushed to hospitals that have also been impacted by the disaster. Myanmar's military ruler has been visiting affected areas and made a rare call for international help.
I'd like to request all of the people to help as much as you can. I've also declared a state of emergency in all affected areas and have opened all ways for foreign aid.
The Southeast Asian bloc ASEAN has promised support from Myanmar, with other countries outside of the region also joining the emergency effort. Foreign teams have begun arriving, bringing with them vital equipment and expertise. But it's not clear how quickly aid can be delivered to Myanmar, a country still in the grips of a civil war.
The earthquake will compound an already dire humanitarian situation in Myanmar, where nearly 20 million people need assistance across the country, including more than 3.5 million people displaced from their homes.
As people in Myanmar wait for help to arrive, for now they'll have to rely on the very scarce resources they have to deal with this disaster.
To Thailand now, where several people have also been reported dead after the quake. Dozens of building workers are also missing after a high-rise under construction collapsed. It took just a matter of seconds for the 30-storey building to topple in on itself on Friday. Since then, rescuers have been digging through the mountain of rubble looking for survivors. Hundreds of people have also spent the night outdoors in the city's parks over fears that other buildings may still be unsafe. Thai authorities say the quake and its aftershocks were felt in most of the country's provinces. Well, for more, I'm joined now by journalist Teirra Kamolvattanavith in Bangkok. Teirra, rescue teams are working on finding the missing people in the building debris. Is there any sign of survivors at this point?
Yes, according to officials, they have detected at least 15 people still under the rubble. The rescue team have worked through the night using drone, heavy machinery, and a K9 team have also been deployed to support with rescue operations. As of this morning, the death toll has now risen to 10, with around 100 still believed to be trapped under the rubble.
In the 24 hours since the quake, Teirra, what are people telling you about what they experienced in that terrifying moment when the quake hit, and what have they said about what they've had to deal with since?
The initial reaction from, I think, most of the residents in Bangkok was panic and quite confusion and a little bit of overwhelm. Thailand is not a country that is prone to earthquakes. In fact, the last shake of this scale was believed to be 95 years ago. So I think a lot of residents were unfamiliar with protocols of how to behave and how to remain safe after the earthquake. And the government was not prepared for an earthquake of this scale. So there was a lot of regrouping and trying to figure out next steps. many of the residents, while have calmed down a little bit, they are also experienced displacement from their apartments. Many buildings are showing signs of cracks. The tiles from the walls and also from their floors have come undone. Debris is falling from the ceiling, they're cracked. So many buildings have declared that the building is unfit to enter or to live in. So many residents of these buildings are now without a place to live. And there is still, while business is now returning to normal and life is returning to some sort of normalcy, it is still quite overwhelming and disorienting for a lot of residents of the city still.
And what are the authorities advising to the people who are perhaps afraid to go home? Are they saying that it is safe to move around the city and indeed to go back to their residence?
The Prime Minister has urged people to stay alert for potential aftershocks, and a national SMS alert system has been set up to keep citizens informed. The government has also advised citizens to remain cautious while going through daily activities, especially in areas that might have experienced structural damage. So I think precaution is still being strongly advised, and everyone is still staying alert for possible aftershocks. And I've heard many people on the internet as well as from my own community saying that they don't feel safe to go back home, especially if they live or work in high-rise buildings. So many people have started moving or relocating to areas that they less tall buildings and in areas that they seem are a little bit safer away from the center of the city, with a lot of high rises and tall buildings.
And Teirra, as bad as the situation is there, the situation in Myanmar seems to be far more serious again. How are authorities there coping with the disaster? And do we know much yet about how much aid is reaching the country?
Yes, the impact in Myanmar has been catastrophic, and in a very rare move for their part, the military junta in Myanmar has appealed for international help, and many countries have offered their assistance. South Korea said they will provide $2 million for earthquake victims, and Malaysia and Hong Kong have said that they will also provide teams to support with relief and rescue operations. International aid has started to arrive as China and India have sent blankets and food as well as teams to help with the search effort. So the damage is still developing in Myanmar as it is catastrophic, and those injured and the deaths are still being tallied. So I think there is unfortunately more to be seen from the death toll and the number of injured in Myanmar.
Journalist Teirra Kamolvattanavith in Bangkok. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Will Rashou is Executive Director of the aid organisation Save the Children in Thailand. He joins me now also from Bangkok. Will, good to see you. What have the last 24 hours been like for you and your organisation since the quake?
It's been a bit hectic, but basically, our teams are working on the ground very quickly. So we're trying to assess the impact. We're focusing on the poor and the migrant communities in Bangkok, around Bangkok, also in Chiang Mai. They live usually in overcrowded places. So we're assessing, the impact on their livelihoods. The access to services has also been disrupted. Many of the hospitals in Bangkok have seen, have had to evacuate patients. They can now slowly start to go back in. We're also evaluating the impact on the refugee communities, where we run the education services for around 28,000 children mostly from Myanmar. So at this stage, it's still very much trying to understand what the needs are and how we can support.
As part of that assessment, Will, we know of a major building collapse where the search continues. How many families do we know in other parts of the city in Bangkok where you are unable simply to stay inside their homes as a result of what happened?
So the numbers are still unclear, but basically we're working with migrant community support groups to make that assessment as soon as possible. And, some of them are in temporary shelters, so we also need to make sure that the children are safe, that their mental health is okay. And if the disruption lasts for longer, we'll be looking at also ensuring that they have access to continuous learning opportunities, because we don't want them to be, out of that for too long.
Yeah, you talk a little bit about the basic needs here. What is your organisation specifically doing to help at this early stage? What can be done at this point?
So ensuring that families have a safe place to stay. So if they don't have proper shelter, ensuring that they can stay with relatives or in a safe space where they will have access to food, to toilets, to basic hygiene items, for instance, and then we'll make sure that they can play. Because the mental health impact again will be great, so they need to be able to kind of express what they've felt. And in Bangkok it was very impressive. So I think a lot of people are still in shock.
Will we hear from the Myanmar side that the government there have reached out to ask for support? Is support from the outside needed, or can the country cope in Thailand, where I guess we're talking about now? Can they cope with what they've got on their plate, and organisations like you at this point?
Unfortunately, it's never enough. And the problem is that, some of these communities already had needs before the earthquake. And so, we always need more support. I think, the government is doing a great job to try to help as much as possible. But some of those communities are maybe hard to reach, especially for the refugees on the border. So there's always need for support. Yeah.
Will Rashou from Save the Children in Thailand, thanks so much.
Thank you.